The rain had only just started to fall, soft droplets brushing the glass canopy overhead, as Rian and Evra Dane wandered through the bustling heart of New Eden's night market. The neon lights of hollow ads painted the streets in shifting colors, their glow reflecting in Evra's curious green-flecked eyes. Rian nudged her as they passed a stall selling fried spherical chips, an Orin delicacy introduced after the first contact decades ago. "You're staring at the food like it owes you something," he teased. Evra smirked, flipping her auburn braid over her shoulder. "I'm staring because I'm trying to figure out how anyone eats that alien junk and survives." Survive? Rian picked up a chip from a sample tray and tossed it into his mouth. "Evra, this is culture. It's oily garbage. It's delicious oily garbage," he countered, grinning as she rolled her eyes. The playful exchange was routine, an effortless rhythm they'd shared for years. Their friendship was built on a foundation of teasing banter and unwavering loyalty, forged through years of hardship in a city where survival often felt like a full-time job. But tonight, something felt off. The atmosphere shifted suddenly, the market's usual hum of activity giving way to an uneasy silence. Traders stopped mid-transaction, shoppers froze. Heads turned, eyes widening in unison as a figure emerged from the shadows at the market's edge. Rian followed their stares, his breath catching in his throat. Standing at nearly 7 feet tall, the alien was impossible to miss. Her presence was magnetic, her aura exuding both authority and danger. Silvery skin shimmered faintly under the neon lights, and her long, flowing hair seemed almost alive, rippling as though caught in an unseen breeze. She wore a sleek black suit that appeared part armor, part second skin, its lines elegant and deadly. Her eyes, deep shimmering violet pools, swept across the crowd, silencing even the whispers. She wasn't just an Erin. She was Maelira, a name spoken with equal parts awe and trepidation. Rian felt a strange pull as her gaze brushed past him, an almost imperceptible tug deep in his chest. Beside him, Evra tensed, her fingers curling instinctively around the strap of her bag. "This isn't normal," she murmured, her voice low. "No kidding," Rian replied, his heart pounding. Then Maelira spoke, her voice rich and resonant, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Humans," she began, her tone a blend of authority and allure. "I seek two among you." Her declaration sent ripples of unease through the crowd. People exchanged nervous glances, stepping back as though proximity alone might make them the chosen. "Rian," Maelira continued, her gaze locking onto him with unsettling precision. "Evra Dane, step forward." Evra's sharp intake of breath mirrored Rian's own shock. The market seemed to shrink around them, the crowd retreating as though to create a spotlight for the two humans now at its center. "What did you do?" Evra hissed under her breath. "Nothing," Rian whispered back. "At least I don't think I did." "You're sure about that?" "Mostly." The Orin emissary raised a single hand, palm upturned, her expression patient but expectant. "Come," she said. "Your reluctance is understandable, but your presence is required." Rian and Evra exchanged a glance. Their bond needed no words to convey what they were both thinking. Refusing an Orin, let alone Maelira, wasn't an option. The air inside Maelira's ship was unnervingly quiet, the hum of unseen machinery in a only sound as they stepped into the vessel. The architecture was unlike anything Rian had ever seen, organic, yet impossibly precise, as though the ship were alive. Soft, bioluminescent lights guided their path, casting faint shadows that danced across the curved walls. "I'll ask again," Evra began, breaking the silence as they followed Maelira deeper into the ship. "Why us?" Maelira stopped abruptly, turning to face them. Her expression remained unreadable, but her tone softened slightly. "You are not the first to ask such a question," she said. "But you are among the few deserving of an answer." She gestured toward a circular chamber at the end of the corridor. The walls were lined with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. In the center of the room stood a raised platform, its surface shimmering with light. You are more than what you believe yourselves to be. Maelira continued, her gaze intense. Humans possess a potential that even you do not fully comprehend. Among your kind, you two are unique. Unique how? Rian asked, his skepticism outweighing his awe. Maelira's lips curved into a faint smile. You are strong, resilient, and unyielding in ways that defy expectation. But it is not strength alone that sets you apart. It is your bond, your connection to one another and to the world around you. Evra folded her arms. So what? You're claiming us because we're friends? No, Maelira replied. I am claiming you because you are necessary. The weight of her words hung in the air, their meaning as elusive as the shimmering patterns on the walls. Before either of them could respond, Maelira raised a hand, and the platform began to glow brighter. What's happening? Rian asked, taking a step back. Do not fear, Maelira said, her voice calm. This will not harm you, it is merely a beginning. When the light faded, Rian and Evra found themselves standing in what appeared to be an endless expanse of stars. The chamber around them had vanished, replaced by a void that felt both infinite and intimate. The stars seemed to pulse in time, with their breathing as though the universe itself were alive. What is this place? Evra whispered, her voice trembling with awe. It is a reflection, Maelira said, her figure now bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. A glimpse into what lies within you. Rian looked down, expecting to see his hands, his feet, something to anchor him to reality. Instead, he saw light. His body was outlined in a faint golden glow, the same energy radiating faintly from Evra beside him. What's happening to us? He asked, his voice tinged with panic. You are awakening, Maelira replied. The potential I spoke of, it is not merely metaphorical. It is real, and it is powerful. Evra's brow furrowed, her analytical mind struggling to process the surreal experience. You still haven't explained what this has to do with you claiming us. Maelira stepped closer, her violet eyes shimmering with a mix of determination and something that almost resembled vulnerability. There are forces in this universe that seek to destroy what you are, she said, and there are those like myself who seek to protect it. But to do so, I need your trust. Trust? Evra scoffed. You drag us out of our lives, throw us into whatever this is, and expect us to trust you? Yes, Maelira said simply. Because without trust, you will not survive what is to come. The journey back to reality was disorienting, the return to the chamber abrupt. The stars vanished, replaced once more by the curved walls of the ship. Rian and Evra exchanged a glance, their shared uncertainty now laced with something deeper, a flicker of understanding. As Maelira led them to their quarters, Rian couldn't help but feel the weight of her words pressing down on him. The idea of being chosen had always seemed like a fantasy, something that happened to other people in stories. But now it was his reality, a reality he barely understood. Do you think she's telling the truth? He asked as they settled into the softly glowing room. Evra sighed, her expression unreadable. I don't know, but if she's lying, she's damn good at it. Rian nodded, his gaze drifting to the ceiling, where faint patterns of light danced, like distant constellations. For the first time in his life, he felt small, not in the sense of insignificance, but in the sense of standing on the edge of something vast and unknowable. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: their lives would never be the same. Rian woke to the sound of an unfamiliar hum, a gentle vibration that seemed to resonate through his very bones. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. The bed beneath him was too soft, the air too fragrant with something floral and alien. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back and his eyes flew open. He sat up quickly, taking in his surroundings. The room was bathed in a warm, golden light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Strange, geometric patterns moved fluidly across the surfaces, their shifting shapes both mesmerizing and unsettling. Across the room, Evra was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed with a look of wary contemplation. Morning, she said without looking at him. Is it morning? Rian asked, running a hand through his dark hair. Feels like we're stuck in the middle of nowhere, wherever this is. Evra finally turned to face him, her green-flecked eyes sharper than usual. It's a ship, Rian, not nowhere, and definitely not normal. No kidding. He swung his legs off the bed, his bare feet meeting a floor that was cool but oddly pliant. Any sign of our charming host? Not yet. Evra's gaze shifted to the wall, where an archway led into an adjoining chamber. I've been trying to figure out what this place is. The tech's way beyond anything we've seen, even from the Orin. Not surprising, Rian muttered. Maelira isn't exactly your average alien. She's something else. Evra agreed, her tone unreadable. The silence that followed was heavy, the weight of their shared uncertainty pressing down on them. Rian stood and crossed the room, his steps tentative. You think she's going to explain why she picked us today? Or are we just supposed to sit here and wait? Before Evra could respond, the wall near the archway shifted, the geometric patterns parting to reveal Maelira herself. She entered with the same commanding presence as before, her silvery skin catching the golden light in a way that made her seem otherworldly. You are awake, she said, her tone as calm and deliberate as ever. Good. There is much to discuss. Rian folded his arms, his skepticism evident. Like why we're here, that'd be a great start. Maelira inclined her head slightly as though conceding the point. Your impatience is understandable, but explanations alone will not suffice. You must experience what I am about to show you. Evra raised an eyebrow. Experience. That sounds ominous. Maelira's lips curved into a faint smile. Only if you fear the unknown. Maelira led them through a series of corridors, each more intricate and awe-inspiring than the last. The walls pulsed with energy, their patterns growing more complex as they moved deeper into the ship. Rian couldn't shake the feeling that the vessel was alive, its very structure responding to their presence. Finally, they entered a large chamber dominated by a circular pool of shimmering liquid. The substance glowed softly, its surface rippling, despite the absence of any visible disturbance. Surrounding the pool were towering crystalline structures that seemed to hum faintly, their light refracting into a kaleidoscope of colors. What is this? Evra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Maelira gestured toward the pool. It is a conduit, a bridge between what is and what could be. Through it, you will begin to understand your connection to the greater whole. Rian exchanged a glance with Evra. Is this the part where we dive in and hope we don't drown? Maelira's expression remained serene. You will not be harmed. The pool is not water. It is energy, distilled and pure. It will not consume you, but it will reveal truths that may be difficult to accept. Evra stepped forward, her curiosity outweighing her caution. Truths about what? About yourselves, Maelira said, her gaze steady. And about what binds you together. Rian hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to hold back. But the determination in Evra's eyes was contagious, and he found himself stepping up beside her. You've got my back, right? He asked, forcing a grin. Always, she replied, her voice steady. With a deep breath, they stepped into the pool together. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming. The liquid wasn't cold or wet, but warm and enveloping, like a cocoon of light. As it rose to their waists, then their chests, Rian felt a strange pressure building in his chest. Not painful, but intense, as though his very essence were being laid bare. Images flashed before his eyes. Fragments of memories. Moments he thought he'd forgotten. He saw himself as a child, standing in the ruins of an old playground after a devastating storm. He saw Evra, years younger, her face streaked with dirt as she argued with a group of older kids. He saw the two of them together, their bond forming, in the chaos of a world that seemed determined to break them. But it wasn't just memories. There were other images too, visions of places he didn't recognize, faces that weren't human. He saw Maelira, her violet eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't name. He saw himself and Evra standing at the center of a swirling storm, their hands clasped as waves of light radiated outward. When the vision ended, Rian found himself gasping for breath, the liquid receding as quickly as it had risen. He stumbled back, his legs shaky, and felt Evra's hand grip his arm to steady him. "What was that?" he managed to say, his voice hoarse. Maelira stood at the edge of the pool, her expression unreadable. "You have seen what lies within you," she said. "The potential I spoke of. It is not merely a possibility. It is a reality waiting to be realized." Evra's eyes were wide, her usual composure shaken. Those visions? Were they real? Or just some kind of simulation? "They were both," Maelira replied. "What you saw was a reflection of your inner selves shaped by your past and your future. It is a glimpse into what you are capable of." Rian shook his head, trying to make sense of it all. Capable of what? Standing in a puddle of glowing goo and seeing weird stuff? How does that help anything? Maelira stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "It helps because you now understand what is at stake. The bond you share is not simply a friendship. It is a connection that transcends the limitations of your kind. It is a force that can reshape worlds." The rest of the day passed. In a haze of questions and half-answers, Maelira explained that the visions were just the beginning, a way of unlocking the latent energy within them. She spoke of ancient conflicts, of forces in the universe that sought to extinguish the light she claimed they carried. Rian wanted to call her out on the vagueness, but every time he opened his mouth, Evra shot him a look that said, "Let her finish." By the time they returned to their quarters, both of them were exhausted. Rian collapsed onto his bed, staring up at the shifting patterns on the ceiling. "What do you think she meant about our bond?" he asked after a long silence. Evra sat on the edge of her bed, her expression thoughtful. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's big. Bigger than us." "Bigger than us," Rian repeated, the words tasting strange in his mouth. "I'm just a guy from the lower levels of New Eden. You're just you." Evra chuckled softly. "Gee, thanks. You know what I mean," he said, sitting up. "We're not heroes. We're not chosen ones. We're just normal. Maybe that's why we were chosen," Evra said quietly. "Because we're not special. Not yet." The thought lingered between them, unspoken but undeniable. Whatever Maelira had planned, it was only just beginning. Rian leaned against the cool surface of his bed frame, staring at the shifting patterns on the wall. The soft hum of the ship surrounded him, a constant reminder that he was far from home, and far from any semblance of normalcy. His thoughts were a chaotic jumble, looping back to the visions he'd seen in the glowing pool. They weren't just memories or dreams. They felt real, as if he had lived those moments and was being called to live them again. On the other side of the room, Evra was uncharacteristically quiet, her back turned as she traced a line along the edge of her bed. Rian could tell from the slight furrow in her brow that she was just as shaken as he was. "You're awfully quiet," he said, trying to break the silence. Evra didn't turn around. "Just thinking." "Dangerous," he teased, though his heart wasn't in it. Her shoulders tensed, and for a moment Rian thought she might snap at him, but when she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Do you think she's right? About us?" Rian frowned. "What? That we're somehow destined to change the universe or whatever? Sounds like a load of nonsense if you ask me." "But what if it's not?" She turned to face him, her green-flecked eyes piercing. "What if those visions weren't just some weird alien trick? What if they were showing us the truth?" Rian opened his mouth to reply, but found himself at a loss for words. He didn't want to admit it, but part of him wondered the same thing. The images he'd seen, the connection he'd felt, were too vivid to ignore. Before he could find an answer, the door to their quarters slid open with a quiet hiss, and Maelira stepped inside. Her presence was as commanding as ever, her silver skin catching the golden light as she regarded them both with a calm, measured gaze. "It is time," she said simply. "For what?" Rian asked, more than a little exasperated. "Another cryptic lesson in destiny?" Maelira's lips curved into a faint smile. "For understanding. Follow me." Maelira led them through the ship's winding corridors, the walls glowing brighter the deeper they went. The air grew warmer, charged with an almost tangible energy that made Rian's skin tingle. He cast a glance at Evra, who walked beside him with a determined expression. "You're taking this awfully well," he muttered. Evra shrugged. "Maybe I'm just better at adapting than you are. Or maybe you're just stubborn." She shot him a sidelong glance. "Takes one, too?" "No one." Before Rian could retort, they entered a vast chamber unlike anything they'd seen before. The ceiling arched high above them, studded with crystalline formations that pulsed with light. In the center of the room stood a large, circular platform, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and shimmer as they approached. "What is this place?" Evra asked, her voice tinged with awe. Maelira stepped onto the platform, gesturing for them to follow. "This is the heart of the ship, the nexus where all its systems converge. It is here that you will begin to understand the bond you share." Rian hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to stay back. But Evra didn't so much as blink before stepping onto the platform, her confidence forcing him to follow. The moment his foot touched the surface, the room seemed to come alive. The crystalline formations above them brightened, casting rainbow-hued light across the chamber. The patterns on the platform glowed and a low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Rian felt a strange pull in his chest, as if the very core of his being were being drawn toward something unseen. He glanced at Evra, who stood rigid beside him, her hands clenched into fists. "What's happening?" he demanded, his voice rising over the hum. Maelira's expression was serene. "The Nexus is attuning to your presence. It is amplifying the connection between you." "Connection?" Evra repeated, her voice tight. "What connection?" Instead of answering, Maelira extended her hands, and the light around them intensified. The hum deepened, vibrating through Rian's body as a wave of energy swept over the platform. Rian's vision blurred, and for a moment, he felt as though he were floating. Then the world around him shifted, and he found himself standing in a vast open field. The sky above was a deep shade of violet streaked with golden clouds. The air was warm, carrying the faint scent of flowers he couldn't name. Rian. He turned to see Evra standing beside him, her expression a mixture of confusion and wonder. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "I was hoping you'd tell me," he replied, though he couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of their surroundings. A figure appeared in the distance, striding toward them with a grace that was both familiar and otherworldly. Maelira. But this version of her was different, less solid, more ethereal. She seemed to shimmer with an inner light, her movements fluid and almost dreamlike. "This is a projection," she said, her voice carrying across the field as though she were standing right next to them. "A manifestation of the Nexus. It has created this space to help you understand." "Understand what?" Evra demanded. Maelira's gaze softened. "The bond between you. It is not a simple connection, nor is it purely emotional. It is a force, one that has the power to shape reality itself." Rian stared at her, incredulous. "You're saying we're some kind of cosmic power couple? That's insane." "It is not insanity," Maelira said calmly. "It is truth. The energy that binds you is ancient, older than this ship, older than my people. It is a force that has been dormant for millennia, waiting for the right moment to awaken." "And that moment is now?" Evra asked, skepticism lacing her tone. Maelira nodded. "The universe is at a tipping point. Forces are gathering that would see it plunged into darkness. But the bond you share has the potential to tip the scales. Together you can create light where there is shadow, hope where there is despair." Rian ran a hand through his hair, struggling to process her words. "That's a lot to put on two people who didn't ask for any of this." "I understand your reluctance," Maelira said. "But the bond chose you, not the other way around." And whether you accept it or not, the fate of countless lives depends on what you do next. The vision faded, and Rian found himself back, on the platform, the hum of the ship still resonating in his ears. He staggered, his legs unsteady, and felt Evra's hand grip his arm to steady him. "You okay?" she asked, her voice low. "Yeah," he muttered, though he wasn't sure if it was true. His mind was racing, his heart pounding in his chest. "That was a lot." Evra nodded, her expression unreadable. "Tell me about it." Maelira stepped down from the platform, her gaze lingering on them both. "You have seen what lies ahead. The choice is now yours." "What choice?" Rian asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "You keep talking about destiny and bonds, but you haven't told us what you actually want us to do." Maelira's lips curved into a faint smile. "All will become clear in time. For now, you must rest. The journey ahead will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." With that, she turned and left the chamber, leaving Rian and Evra alone once more. As they made their way back to their quarters, the silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions and doubts. When they finally reached their room, Rian collapsed onto his bed with a groan. "This is insane," he said, staring up at the ceiling. "We're just two people. How are we supposed to do any of this?" Evra sat on the edge of her bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I don't know," she admitted. "But if what Maelira said is true, we don't have a choice." Rian sighed, rubbing his temples. "Great. No pressure or anything." Evra glanced at him, her gaze steady. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that made Rian's chest tighten. He nodded, a small spark of resolve igniting within him. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: he wouldn't face it alone. The stillness of the ship felt like the calm before a storm. Rian couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with an invisible energy that made his skin prickle. As he paced the confines of his quarters, Evra sat cross-legged on her bed, her gaze fixed on the small orb Maelira had left behind. A gift or perhaps a test? "Still staring at that thing?" Rian asked, breaking the silence. "It's not just a thing," Evra replied, her voice edged with curiosity and frustration. "I think it's a key." "A key to what? More cryptic messages and vague warnings?" Evra looked up at him, her green-flecked eyes glinting with determination. "A key to answers. If we can figure out how it works, maybe we'll finally understand what we're supposed to do." Rian folded his arms, leaning against the wall. "Or maybe it's just another way for Maelira to mess with our heads." Evra sighed, setting the orb down. "You know, for someone who's been thrown into a cosmic destiny, you're awfully cynical." "Cynicism keeps me sane," Rian shot back. "You should try it sometime." Before Evra could retort, the door slid open, and Maelira stepped inside. Her presence immediately silenced the room, her calm yet commanding aura filling the space. "It is time," she said, her tone as steady as ever. "For what?" Evra asked, standing. Maelira gestured for them to follow. "To witness the catalyst." They followed her through the ship's labyrinthine corridors, the walls glowing brighter as they approached the heart of the vessel. The air grew warmer, heavier, as if the ship itself was alive and brimming with anticipation. When they reached their destination, a chamber even larger than the Nexus, they stopped short, staring in awe. The room was dominated by a massive, pulsating structure that resembled a living star, its light shifting between hues of gold, blue, and violet. Tendrils of energy extended from it, connecting to crystalline conduits that lined the walls. The air vibrated with a low hum, the sheer power of the room making Rian's chest tighten. "What is this?" Evra whispered, her voice barely audible. "The core of the ship," Maelira replied, "and the source of its power. It is alive, in its own way, a being of energy and light, created to maintain balance in the universe." Rian raised an eyebrow. And what does this have to do with us? Maelira turned to face them, her expression uncharacteristically serious. The core is linked to the bond you share. It has been dormant for centuries, waiting for the right individuals to awaken it. That time has come. Evra frowned. You're saying this thing is tied to us? How? The energy that flows through the core is the same energy that binds you, Maelira explained. Your bond is the key to its activation. Rian shook his head. This is insane. You're telling us we're supposed to, what, power a cosmic generator? It is not merely a generator, Maelira said. The core is a force of creation and destruction. If activated, it can restore balance to the universe, or tip it into chaos. Rian exchanged a glance with Evra, her expression mirroring his unease. And if we don't do this? He asked. Maelira's gaze hardened. The forces that seek to plunge the universe into darkness will grow stronger. Without the core, there will be nothing to stop them. Rian sighed, running a hand through his hair. So, no pressure, huh? Evra stepped forward, her shoulders squared. What do we need to do? Maelira extended her hands and the light around them intensified. You must synchronize your energies with the core. It will require focus, trust, and an unbreakable connection. Rian snorted. Yeah, because we're just brimming with trust right now. Evra shot him a warning look before turning back to Maelira. We'll do it. Rian opened his mouth to argue but stopped when he saw the determination in Evra's eyes. He sighed, his resistance crumbling. Fine, let's get this over with. They stepped onto a raised platform in front of the core, the energy around them crackling like a storm. Maelira stood behind them, her voice calm and steady as she instructed them. Close your eyes and focus on the bond you share. Let it guide you. Rian hesitated but eventually closed his eyes, his breathing uneven. He could feel the energy of the core pulsing around him, but it was distant, like the faint thrum of a heartbeat. He tried to focus, but his thoughts kept drifting. To Earth, to the life he'd left behind, to the sheer absurdity of the situation. Then he felt it, a warmth that wasn't his own. It started as a faint flicker, growing stronger with each passing second. He opened his eyes to see Evra's hand reaching for his. Her expression was uncertain, but there was a quiet strength in her gaze. Trust me, she said softly. Rian hesitated before taking her hand. The moment their fingers intertwined, the warmth surged, spreading through his body like wildfire. The core responded, its light intensifying as the tendrils of energy shifted toward them. The connection was overwhelming, a tidal wave of emotion and power that left Rian breathless. He could feel Evra's presence as clearly as his own. Her fears, her doubts, but also her strength and determination. It was as if their souls had merged, becoming one. The core pulsed, its energy flowing into them and amplifying their bond. The air around them shimmered, the room filling with a radiant light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Maelira's voice cut through the chaos. You are the catalyst. Together, you hold the power to shape the future. But, be warned, this power will test you. It will demand everything you have and more. Rian's grip on Evra's hand tightened. No pressure, right? Despite the gravity of the moment, Evra smiled. We've come this far. We can handle it. As the core's energy reached its peak, Rian felt a surge of hope. For the first time, he believed they might actually have a chance. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The core's brilliance intensified until it consumed the chamber, its light cascading in waves of gold and violet that danced across every surface. Rian and Evra stood at the epicenter of this radiant maelstrom, their hands clasped tightly together. The air crackled with energy, heavy yet invigorating, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Rian's thoughts were a chaotic jumble. For all his cynicism, he had to admit that this moment felt like destiny, or something dangerously close to it. Next to him, Evra's face was set with determination, her features glowing in the light of the core. Their bond was no longer just a thread of energy linking them. It was a living, breathing force that pulsed with life and purpose. "Rian," Evra whispered, her voice steady despite the storm around them. "Do you feel it?" He nodded, words failing him. It was as if the core was speaking to them, not in words but in a profound understanding that bypassed thought. The core's energy surged through them, resonating with their emotions, hope, fear, love, and magnifying them 1,000-fold. Maelira's voice broke through the blinding light. "The core responds to your bond. It's stabilizing. But the final choice is yours. Will you wield this power and fulfill its purpose, or will you let it fade into dormancy?" Rian hesitated, his gaze flicking to Evra. He could see the same question in her eyes, but beneath it was a quiet certainty. She trusted him, trusted them. That realization sent a wave of warmth through him, melting away the last vestiges of doubt. "What happens if we activate it?" Rian asked, his voice rough. "The core will restore balance to the universe," Maelira explained. "It will end the chaos and prevent the darkness from spreading. But it will also bind you to it, and to each other, forever." Rian's stomach tightened. Forever was a long time. But when he looked at Evra, her green-flecked eyes steady and unyielding, the fear ebbed. Forever with her didn't seem like a burden. It felt like a gift. "I'm in," Rian said, his voice firm. "If you are." Evra smiled, her grip on his, hand tightening. "I was always in." The core responded instantly. The tendrils of energy that had been swirling around them converged, creating a shimmering cocoon of light. The room seemed to dissolve, replaced by a vast expanse of stars. They stood together in this infinite void, the core's energy weaving around them like a living tapestry. As the light enveloped them, Rian felt a deep, resonant pull within his chest. The bond between him and Evra wasn't just a connection anymore. It was a foundation, an anchor that tied them to each other and to the universe itself. Every heartbeat, every thought, every emotion was in perfect harmony. The transformation was subtle, yet profound. When the light finally receded, the chamber was still and quiet, the core pulsing with a steady, rhythmic glow. Maelira stood a few paces away, her expression unreadable. "It is done," she said. "The core has been awakened, and its power will ripple across the stars. You have changed everything." Rian let out a shaky breath, his knees threatening to buckle. Evra caught him, her strength grounding him. "That was intense," he muttered. Evra laughed softly, the sound like music in the stillness. "You're telling me." Their victory, however, was not without its consequences. The core's activation sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, drawing the attention of those who sought to control or destroy it. Maelira's ship became a beacon, a rallying point for allies and a target for enemies. But Rian and Evra were no longer ordinary humans. The core's energy had transformed them, enhancing their abilities and deepening their bond. They could feel each other's thoughts and emotions as if they were their own, moving as one in perfect synchronicity. Together, they were unstoppable. Months passed in a blur of battles and alliances. The universe was in turmoil, but hope burned brighter than ever. Rian and Evra became symbols of resistance, their love and unity inspiring others to stand against the darkness. The core's power amplified their efforts, forging a path toward peace. Despite the chaos, they found moments of solace. Quiet nights under alien skies, stolen kisses amidst the turmoil, and whispered promises that kept them grounded. Their love was a constant, a beacon that guided them through the storm. One day, as they stood on the bridge of Maelira's ship, gazing out at the stars, Rian turned to Evra. "Do you think we'll ever have a normal life again?" Evra smiled, leaning into him. "I don't know. But whatever happens, we'll face it together." Rian wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. The weight of their journey, their choices, felt lighter with her by his side. For the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. Maelira approached, her expression softer than usual. The universe owes you a great debt. You've given it a chance to heal. Evra looked up at her, a spark of mischief in her eyes. And what about us? Do we get a chance to rest? Maelira chuckled. Rest is a luxury in times like these. But you have each other, and that is more than most can hope for. As the ship drifted through the endless expanse of stars, Rian and Evra stood together, their hands entwined. The universe stretched out before them, vast and full of possibilities. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready for whatever came next. Together they were unstoppable, and together they were home.